One more game to show against Luis Marini. And Luis Marini, I mean, he's an unknown. The only thing I know about him is he was born September 30th, 1912, and he died in 1990 at the age of 77. He was from Argentina. That's all I really know about the guy. E4. We get a Sicilian defense with C5. Knight F3. Knight C6 is the old Sicilian. D4, and we get an open Sicilian. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Knight F6, Knight C3. D6 is the classical variation. And of course, Sozin's attack. Benjamin Sozin. Bishop D7, Bishop B3, Pawn G6, Pawn F3. Here, Knight A5 is not the book move. The book move is Knight takes Knight, and after Queen takes Knight, Bishop G7. Marini with Knight A5 right here. Bishop G5. Bishop G7. Queen D2. Pretty equal position here. Pawn H6. Bishop back to E3. Rook C8. Queenside castles. Knight C4. Hitting the queen. Bot calling for knight takes bishop. You could play A6 here to support the advance of B5. That gets a thumbs up. Queen E2, marked as a mistake, right? He should not allow black to capture the queen's bishop, and so take the knight with your king's bishop. And after rook takes, get your king out of the rook's line of fire with king B1. By playing Queen E2, he does allow knight takes the bishop, and that's what Marini plays. Queen takes Queen B6. Now that's marked inaccurate, but I like this move because it pins the knight. Queen is undefended. So E5, in other words, would be a winning move because of this pin. So for that reason, Queen D2 was played. Now, real quick, let's just blunder with King B1 and show the power of E5 here. Attack the pinned piece. And the only place you can move the knight that doesn't lose your queen is F5, giving away the knight. So that after pawn takes knight, queen has to take the queen. But now you're down a knight. So that's the idea of Queen B6, which is why I don't understand why the bot's giving it an inaccuracy. Queen D2 is played here, also frowned upon for whatever reason. Queen C5. Pawn F4. That's marked as a mistake. Knight A4 being recommended to put the question to this queen. Pawn F4 chosen. Now H5. That's marked as a mistake. Bot calling for B5 here. I would have wanted to get my king castled myself. You guys know me. I'm a fundamentalist. I like that fundamental basic principle to chess. I get a thumbs up for castling. The fickle bot has not beaten me up this week like it has in times past. Anyway, H5 from Marini. Knight F3, and now that threatens E5 here. Note that we'd like to unleash the power of our rook-queen battery against this bishop. So forking the knight and the pawn, you can move your knight, but then I'll take your pawn, and I'm going to get two pawns. If you take my pawn, well, I replace it and hit the knight again. And then if you move, you've been blasted. You're finished. Checkmate. Let me show it. Let's do something totally stupid here. I play here, I hit this, I go there, I hit that. Why does it say that's a mistake? I should have taken it with the knight. I was trying to show something else, that you're self-mating. You've seen this in Puzzle Rush. Deflect the king, sack the queen. That's all I was trying to show. I really wasn't trying to find the best moves. I was trying to show you why. Anyway, bishop H6 was played here. Knight G4, recommended by the bot. You can play bishop G4 here as well, I think. Let's go back. Gets a check mark. All right, bishop H6, though, gets a full question mark. And E5 is, in fact, played. Knight G4. Pawn takes pawn is the move to try to keep the fight alive. This gets a question mark. On pawn takes pawn, knight takes the pawn, queen takes the knight. The point is this pawn is pinned. So queen takes the knight, pawn takes the queen, bishop takes the queen, check. Rook takes the bishop, and then the knight can come to G4. That keeps the fight alive, although white still looks better. Knight G4 was chosen by Luis Marini. King's rook to E1. Don't play pawn takes pawn here. That's a big red X, isn't it? Queen E3 will be played, and that forces simplification. And for black, that simplification results in consolidation. So, rook E1 covers that square. Castles, knight e4 hitting the queen. But it not only hits the queen, it prevents this knight from coming to f2. And of course, you still want to resist e takes d6 as well here. Queen takes d6. It's going to give black better chances. Okay, if I play knight g5 or queen takes queen first. If knight g5, king g7, right? Knight g5, king g7. But if I just play queen takes queen first and pawn takes queen, then I can play knight g5. Well, it's marked as inaccurate. And this guy's hanging too. Yeah, white's winning no matter what. So I say still resist e takes d6, but it would be hard for white to lose this game. Knight e4, though, hits the queen and defends against knight f2. Queen b6. Now e takes d6. e5 is played here. E takes d6 being called for. On e takes d6, I'll go ahead and take that with my knight. Hit your rook, make you move. Marini tried e5. Knight eg5, bishop f5, knight takes e5. Bishop takes the knight on g5. Pawn takes the bishop. And we do have this super attack here. So he might be advised to play knight takes knight. He played knight f2. The bot calls for knight takes knight, which of course is answered by rook takes knight and bishop g4. But by now, white is in complete control either way. Knight f2 was played, d7, hitting the rook. The rook blockades on d8, and now knight takes the f-man. Of course, clearing the a2, g8 diagonal, so he has no choice but to give up the rook for the knight. Well, we're not taking the rook. With e8 under defended, we're playing rook e8, check. And of course, if rook takes rook, pawn takes rook is a queen. But the rook on d8's defended by the queen, so king h7, and rook takes rook, simplifying. If you don't want to simplify, I mean, you don't have to right now, but Bobby was the master of simplification. But queen c3 is also a strong move. It's threatening checkmate up here. If I get queen to h8, that is checkmate, defended by my rook. So you'd have to block my queen with rook g7. But now I'm going to play check with my bishop. Double exclam! Oh, yeah! So you can't take with the rook because it's mate in two. If you take with the rook, I check and then mate. That's the point. If you take, check, and after you block, mate. So therefore you can't take, so king h8 must be played. And I think I'm playing rook e7 anyway. See what it gives me. A star threatening the magic square. And what does he have? He's got a few stalling moves now. That's it. Knight d3. Obviously, he can't take because he's pinned. That would be ill eagle. And as you know, an ill eagle is a sick bird. You can't move like a sick bird. So this is just winning. Anyway, Bobby playing the more straightforward, more simplex move. Rook takes rook. Queen takes rook. It's really just a matter of time now. Bishop takes rook. Knight takes rook. Bishop e8, defending my valuable passed pawn. Much better than taking the knight. By the way, the knight is trapped. It can't go anywhere. If you take the knight, there goes your beautiful passer. Remember this about passed pawns, or any pawn in enemy territory for that matter. We think of the point system, and generally we say pawns are worth 1 point, but not so once they cross into enemy territory. As soon as they get to the 5th rank, they're worth 2 points, then 4 points, then 6 points. This pawn is worth more than a rook. And then, of course, they're worth 9 points because they become a queen. Oh, yeah. So bishop e8, and this knight, it's not like this knight can save itself. Every square is hot. He had to take the pawn. The pawn is worth more than the bishop. And now Bobby forcing the simplification. Check. Queen takes queen. Bishop takes queen. All right, that lights the knight off the hook. But with 2 extra pawns on the board, and Fischer as your last name, it's going to be an easy win from here. He goes with bishop to c8, pawn to b6, bishop b7, saving this G-man. Pawn a5, king d2, and that is where Luis Marini threw in the towel. Let's give you the numbers. 94.5 accuracy, single game rating, 2900. Think about that.